It's good to be back on another interview video with you. So, in today's video, we've got a very, very interesting subject again. And I want to hear from you why the current and the most popular technical analysis that most traders focus on isn't necessarily the thing that's going to make them win consistently and make them a profitable trader.
Right. I mean, we're talking about technical analysis, right? It's a
Yes,
huge topic.
yes,
It's the first thing that draws wannabe traders and new participants, uh, draws them in and let them and build that hope that they can decipher this, they can crack the code. The tools are out there. Let's just use them. It's easy.
yeah,
Unfortunately, that's far from being the case, right? And I know this firsthand because I've done it all.
yeah,
Like when I started off as a Forex dealer, like I really started from the bottom. I always knew I wanted to be a trader, a day trader. I knew
yeah,
this is going to be my profession. Um, and I started to read a few books like everybody else, right? You start to read a few books, you buy a couple of books, you go online, you go to Google, you type a few, technical analysis for beginners
yeah,
or strategy that is working, all kinds of fancy keywords.
yeah,
And we all find the same tools, the same techniques, the same methods because they're on public domain. Easy to get, easy to reach, easy to see, and easy to use.
yeah,
Um, there are two problems here. First problem is what I call the overwhelming effect. So you go into that rabbit hole. Once you step into that rabbit hole, you really fall into it in a sense that there are so many tools, there are
yeah,
so many techniques, there are so many patterns, indicators, oscillators, you name it. I'm talking about hundreds, right? You
yeah,
can't even wrap your head around it, not to mention utilize it effectively.
yeah,
But I took a few years, I'm not talking days or weeks, I'm talking years, just to master that part, which is technical analysis. I was under the impression that I just need to find the right combination
yeah,
of techniques, of indicators, of patterns, whatever. I
yeah,
need to find the right mix. I need to set them up together properly, and boom, I'm going to
yeah,
be a profitable, sustainably profitable trader, right? And that's how I started. So I started 2005, started to read books as I was basically dealing for Forex. I was just answering calls, right? I was just filling up orders. Like
yeah,
people would call, buy me this, sell me this, and I would just, yeah, you got it, boom, boom, boom.
yeah,
But on the way, I was reading a lot. I was literally trying everything under the sun. You name it, I did it.
yeah,
And needless to say, it did not work. I kept bleeding money. I kept losing money. I kept blowing up accounts in my first 2, 3 years, trying, like I said, everything under the sun.
yeah,
All indicators. One day I would use this indicator with that technique or that method, and then I will switch and I will put a different indicator. I would just trial and error and test and
yeah,
experiment constantly. And nothing was working for me. Like I just kept losing, and so we have this problem of overwhelming, right? Just
yeah,
it takes you just a couple of years just to wrap your head around all of those tools and
yeah,
methods. That's one problem. The second problem, which is even worse, is the fact that it's not working at all. And if you start to think about it, which I did, it took me a few years, right?
yeah,
And by the way, in those years, I became a master of technical analyst. I became a master technical analyst. Like I literally
yeah,
went to London to have my master's degree in market analysis.
Yeah.
So there's an organization that is called the National Federation of Technical Analysis.org
Yeah.
or org, where they qualify people, students, they qualify them as master technical analysts, right? Does that guarantee you're going to do well in the market? No,
Got
it's
you.
not. So I had to become a master of technical analysis just to realize that it doesn't work.
Yeah. That's crazy.
You see
That's
it's just,
crazy.
it's a conundrum. So
That's
it
very
is, yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Years spending on this stuff just to realize it does not work. But then I started to think about it, and it came to me that I started to realize. I mean, breaking the market, beating the market on a consistent level is must be one of the hardest things ever.
Mm.
Like really, and there's no secret about it. Like 97, 98. I'm not sure about the statistic. Might be even 99%
Yeah.
over the long run will be washed out of the market just to be replaced with new blood coming in.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle.
Yeah.
Um, and I started to realize that is why that's the reason. Those tools, those methods, techniques, patterns, indicators, oscillators, all of that stuff that's on public domain, it doesn't work because it's on public domain. That's why it doesn't work. If it would
I've
have been
got you. Yeah.
working,
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody has the same access to these things.
Yeah.
They're out there.
Yeah.
Anybody can get access to these things and try them. And we know that the vast majority of participants are going to fail. And that makes total sense
Yeah.
because they're using the same flawed methods, techniques that are on public domain. So it's bound to fail.
Yeah.
And that's where I started to realize that I need something different,
Yeah.
something that I might be having to make up, invent.
Oh,
I
yeah.
had to invent the wheel, reinvent myself.
Reinvent the wheel.
So
Yeah.
instead of going to the same place that everybody else is going and failing over and over again, by the way, all these tools and indicators, what they're doing is just lagging
Yeah. Lagging
price action.
indicators.
They're
Yeah.
lagging the market. Yeah. The market is leading, price action is leading, and they fall behind
Yeah.
and straighten themselves
Yep.
according to price action. So no doubt they have no predictive value,
Yeah.
zero predictive value. So these things I started to think about and I started to realize that's the case. I got to do this differently. I got
Yeah.
to invent something that is not out there. How do I do this, right? It took me another couple of years just to figure that out.
Yeah.
Um, Luckily for me, I can say that with confidence. Just because I kept trying, failed, pick myself up, dust myself off, back to the drawing board, trying again, trying a few things, failing again, picking myself up again,
Yeah.
moving forward. Because I was consistent, at some point, something started to click. I started to notice some patterns that I didn't notice before.
Yeah.
And I also started by eliminating all of these tools and methods and techniques, got them out of my chart, kept my chart naked,
Clean. Yeah.
naked,
Yeah.
nothing on it, right? And I'm just giving you a little bit of
Yes.
the background
Yeah.
that was leading me to this point because I'm not using any of these tools these
Yeah.
days. I have a naked chart with my own
Own system.
developed system, which is a support and resistance system that I was able to develop um, mostly on trial and error, years of trial
Yeah.
and error. So I'm using something that is completely original and unique, and you can't find it anywhere. Like you would try to figure out what I'm
Yeah.
doing, you have no chance. It's just not there.
Yeah.
So I
Crazy.
think this is key to breaking forward and making a real that made a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
All the difference. That made all the difference for
Yeah.
me because when I started to hone in on the new methodology that I was starting to develop, that's where things started to shift for me,
Yes.
and I started to stop losing, start break even with the market, but I kept improving, kept optimizing it. Right, every day I figure out where I was wrong, fixed it, optimizing it, going back to the drawing board, and I started to notice the improvement.
Yeah.
And I started to notice I'm starting to beat the market. I'm starting to create to generate profit
Yeah.
on a monthly basis, which was consistent. So I think this is probably the biggest trap for newbies,
Yeah.
for newcomers, for even experienced traders. They're
Yeah.
still struggling. It's because they always resort back to
The
the same
public.
methodologies, techniques,
Yeah,
indicators that are
the
on
mainstream
public
things.
domain.
Yep.
Exactly,
I
they're
got
out
you.
there. Yeah, that's it's like it's not just that it doesn't work. It's even worse than that. It's deceptive.
Yeah. 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 100%.
You using it and you're gonna lose for sure. Like I can guarantee
It's
you're not gonna be
almost,
successful
yeah, it's
using
almost
any of
like
those
it's
tools.
designed.
I didn't want to say it. You said
It's designed to
it.
keep people funding and funding and funding and funding the
I
market basically and not
Yeah, I
being
didn't
able
want
to
to say
use it
it.
as a vehicle
True.
to get out.
Listen, I don't know. It might be. It might be a conspiracy, right? I don't want to get into conspiracies. It might
Conspiracy.
be a huge conspiracy designed, like you said, to keep people where they should be,
Yep.
according to But nevertheless, whether it is or it isn't,
Yeah.
I guarantee this is not. These things are the reason most wannabe traders and new participants, new
Yeah.
trader, newcomers, and this is the reason they're failing
Yeah.
because they're using flawed tools,
Yep.
flawed techniques that didn't stand the test of time
Yeah.
and have no reliability whatsoever.
Yeah.
But that's what's out there, and
Yep.
that's what people are using. And if you buy, you go and you buy books. There are tons of books. They all talk about these things.
Yeah.
But never have I ever seen anyone that can show me a real live verified trading account that is successful over time using these
Using, yeah,
methodologies,
yeah.
these techniques, these
True.
tools.
Very
Right?
true.
Never ever seen anything like that,
Yeah, it's like the
in
information
my
just
opinion.
pops out from somewhere and it's like consumed, but no one knows where this actually came from. Like there's no track record
Right.
of this thing that just appeared, this information.
Yeah, it's almost like, those failed traders that say that they realize they can't beat the market. So they say, oh, you know what? Let's
Yeah.
just write a book about it. Let's just write it. Let's make
Yo, let's
money
make money off of
some
it. I've got you.
let's make money in a different way because that's not working. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
It's like, where you have in university, you have those teachers or lecturers that they know is theory, but when it comes to practice, you put them in real life, they're not successful. That's why they went to teaching.
Yep.
All these people writing all these books, I bet you none of them is a profitable day trader,
Yep.
is a consistently successful and profitable day trader. None of them is. That's why they had to resort to
Yeah.
writing books about things that just do not work.
And feeding the problem. Feeding the problem, basically. The
Absolutely.
deceptiveness of that is
Absolutely.
enough to make you
It's almost
nauseous, basically.
it's
Like,
almost a
if you think
crime.
about it, it is. It is. And it's the same.
It's
Like, that
almost a crime.
concept is the same with, like, self help books that tells you, like, you can
Exactly.
make a millions only working
Yeah,
3 hours per day. It's the same concept because essentially people
it's
just
just
run for that because that's what they want to hear.
Because
No
it's
one
a get
wants to.
rich quick scheme,
Exactly. No one
right?
wants
It's
to
a get
hear
rich quick
that you
scheme.
have to work 16 hours a day like Elon Musk to actually make billions. No one wants to read
Right,
that. So it's the same
right.
concept.
It took me a decade to figure out all these things I'm telling you. And it
Yeah.
took me a decade to leave it all behind
Yep.
and clean my chart.
Yeah.
Having it clean, naked. It took me a decade to figure all these things out and
Yeah.
start working on something original of my own
Yeah.
that was built out of my observations of the market on based on tons
Yeah.
of trial and error.
Error. Yep. Real world
Yeah.
experience. What I want to hear from you before we end this interview is your system, what you currently trade. Is it like what time frames do you normally look at? Does it work on all time frames for the people that's watching and interested? Like, is it something that's applicable to people doing long term trading, or is it only applicable to the 1 hour time frame, or your system specifically? What does it
Yeah.
focus on?
That's a good question. So I don't believe in intraday trading. I don't believe in the very small
Yeah, like
charts, right? In the very
cluttered space.
there's a reason for it. Like the more you go down, the closer you go to price section, the more noisy it is,
Yeah,
right? It's only when you take a few steps back, looking from an iBird's view at the long-term charts, that's where order starts to kick in.
yeah,
Okay, so that's why that's another thing. That's another trap for traders. I fell in that trap myself because when you first start as a trader, you're getting drawn to the really fast moving charts, which is
yeah.
the 1 minute, the 5 minute,
The
the
15.
15
Yeah,
minute, the 1 hour, because there's a lot of action, and you
yeah,
feel like there's a lot of money to be made, right?
yeah.
But it's completely random at that level.
Mm,
It's almost completely random. It's like trying to chase a molecule.
yeah,
You know what I mean? What I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
You
yeah.
can chase a pattern, but you cannot chase that
Yes.
particular molecule.
Yeah,
So that's how I felt. And even though my system might work on the lower, on the speedy charts,
yeah,
on the short charts,
yeah,
15 minutes, 1 hour, it might work, but the success rate, the probability rate is much lower,
yeah,
and I would have to endure a lot more losses.
yeah.
Not to mention, I would have to be glued to the screen.
Yep.
Like I would literally have no life. I would
Yeah.
have to be glued to the screen and consistently trying to find
Find
that
something.
opportunity
Yeah.
and basically go into over trading. And
Mm.
when every time you put a trade, you pay for it, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
pay the spread, you have the commission.
Yeah.
So the more you trade, basically, the more you pay, the more commissions you pay. So it becomes harder, ever ending, never ending problem
Yeah.
that you have to deal with. And that, yeah, I'm not advising it at
Okay.
all. So for me, what I do is I keep my eyes on three time scales. The monthly chart, which is the biggest one. I call
Yep.
it the big picture
Yes.
because I want to nail the underlying trend.
Yeah.
I want to zone in, dial in on the cycle, the big cycle.
Yes. Yes.
Then I'll move to the weekly chart where I will try to gauge not the grand trend, not the major trend, but the
Yes.
intermediate trend
Got you.
or the intermediate cycle. And then I will use the daily chart as my execution chart.
Okay.
So on the daily, I will look for the trigger. So let's say my long term overview on the trend from the monthly chart is bullish.
Yes.
Then the intermediate overview of the cycle on the weekly chart is also bullish,
Yep.
right? So they're aligned.
I've got
So I'm
you.
looking for alignment between the big cycle and the medium cycle. Then I'll go to the daily chart and I'll wait for the right moment to strike, the
I've
right
got
moment to
you.
pull the trigger. I'm going to get that trigger once the daily chart goes and starts to be in line with the weekly and monthly.
Yes.
It crosses a particular inflection point,
Yep.
and that's
Then
where
you
I pull the
strike.
trigger and I get into a trade. So it's monthly, weekly, daily for
Yes.
me, nothing below that.
Yep.
And there's another reason for it, and that's the close of the session.
Yeah.
The close of a day is like the equilibrium between buyers and sellers. It's like they're
Yeah,
agreeing
it's
at the end of
telling
the
us
day.
it's telling a story.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's like this is the end of the daily session. That's where we agreed that price action should be. You know what I mean? So there's
Like the battle
there's
between
a
the bulls and the bears, and then it
yeah,
shows you
they settle
exactly.
it.
I've
The end
got
of the
you.
day, we settled this,
And then
right?
tomorrow we go again.
And tomorrow it's a new day, exactly. So the close of the daily session has meaning to it. So when I say I'm waiting for the daily chart, that's my execution chart, to give me that trigger, what I'm really waiting for is to the end of the daily session where I have a daily close. And if that daily close had surpassed my trigger level, I'm in.
I
I'm
got you.
jumping into position. If it didn't, then I'm going to have to hold.
Yes, wait for something
Wait.
else.
So the daily close, very important. The weekly close, even more important. That's higher authority. So if I
Yes.
get a trigger from the daily close, but then a couple of days later, there's the weekly session is closing, and it's also closing above my trigger. That's what I call confirmation.
Yeah.
So now I'm even more confident on my conviction.
Yeah.
And it's the same with the monthly chart. So if the monthly close is the highest authority,
Yes.
but that can give me insight into the underlying trend. Where is that going? So if it
Yeah.
closed above that trigger level, then I know I'm on the right direction.
Yeah.
And I'm getting even more confident, so I can get even more aggressive
Got
with
you.
my particular position.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell.
That's awesome. Thanks, Roy. Thank you so much for sharing this info. This was very valuable information. Appreciate it. And I can't wait for our next interview session next week. So
Same here.
I'll see you
Looking
next
forward
week,
to
man.
that. Thank you very much for
Thank you
this.
so much. Have a good one. Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.
Cheers.